Welcome back to 8-Metal Strings. Next up in our series about triads on the 8-string guitar, we're going to be talking about drop 3 triad voicings. Now drop 3 is usually a term that is reserved for 4-part chord voicings, but I'm going to borrow it here to describe these types of triad shapes for our 8-string guitar just for ease of use and so we know what we're referencing. So what does drop 3 actually mean? Well, drop 3 means taking the third note from the top of the chord and then dropping that note down by 1 octave. The other 2 notes will remain the same. This results in a 3-string gap between the top 2 strings and our bass note. Now this isn't something that I would do a ton on a 6-string guitar, but I've realized that for 8-string guitar it sounds really good on our low strings. And this is because that large gap between the notes doesn't feel so large. And that's because all the overtones that are present in the lowest note of our triad shape kind of fill in that space for our ears and trick our ears into making it think it is a much bigger chord than it actually is. The other reason that I really love these triad shapes is that it's finally giving us something that we can do on 8-string guitar that we can't do on 6-string guitar. So we're discovering some characteristic sounds of the 8-string that make this instrument feel unique and kind of special compared to other guitars. So for this video I have made diagrams of all of the major, minor, diminished, augmented, and suspended triads in their drop 3 voicings for the 8-string guitar. Now that can be found by following the top link in the description below this video, and it is free, no charge, no sign up necessary. As a little side note, if you're finding that you are unfamiliar with some of the terms that have been mentioned already, then you might want to go back and check out my last 2 videos I did about triads. In those I do a basic breakdown of how triads are formed, and I also talk about why triads are important and how they can be applicable to your playing. So if you don't want to memorize every shape on the PDF, it's a good idea to know how to make these shapes yourself, so you can just figure them out. So how do we do that? Well, you're going to start with any closed triad shape on strings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Make sure we don't have strings 7 or 8 because we're going to need those when we drop our notes. So I'm going to start with a first inversion F major triad with the A on string 6. So that's going to be fret 5, 3, 3. Now all I have to do to find my drop 3 voicing is take that third note from the top, which is the A on string 6, and drop it down by 1 octave. Now that's a bit of an uncomfortable fingering, so I'm going to just switch my fingers around to find a better one. And there we have it. There's our first inversion major triad. You can figure it out from a minor chord as well, or a diminished chord. But once you get one of them in drop 3 position, you can kind of just work the notes in that shape rather than having to go back to a closed triad and re-figure out every drop 3 shape. So if I were to do like this E flat major, find its drop 3 voicing, I now know I have the root, the 3rd, and the 5th, and then I can go ahead and figure out all of the other triad types from here. So I can make it minor by dropping the 3rd, diminished by dropping the 5th, I can make it suspended by raising the 3rd to the 4th, and I can also make it augmented by making the 5th sharp. So no need to go back and forth between closed and drop 3 to find every voicing. So try to figure out these shapes yourself rather than just memorizing them on the sheet, and you will internalize them a lot quicker. So now that you know that these shapes exist and sound really good on the 8-string guitar, I want to give you a little exercise so that you can practice them so you can start having them come out in your playing. All of the exercises I went over in the video about closed triads are applicable still for these triads. You can work on them in string groups, going through the inversions, or positionally going through the inversions. And that will just give you a good grasp on these shapes to get started. But once you've done that, you might be looking for something a little bit more interesting to play, and perhaps a little bit more musical. And that's where today's exercise comes in. All we are going to do is choose a 2 or 3 chord progression and work our way up and down the neck playing through the inversions of those chords. Let me show you what I mean. So the chord progression that I've chosen for today is the 4 to 1 chord progression. And for the ease of demonstration, I'm just going to do it in the key of C. So in the key of C, 4 is F, and 1 is C. Now we're just going to be oscillating between those 2 chords in our new drop 3 voicings. So I'm going to pick somewhere kind of up on the neck to start, as this chord progression tends to work backwards. So I've chosen to start up in second inversion on the F chord, which is at fret 13 with the C in the bass on string 7. Once I play that, I can resolve to the C major chord. And I can then move down to find the next F chord, which is going to be in first inversion, and then resolve that to its C major next door. Continue this process, F and C. From here I can perhaps go down to my lowest string and do an F here. I resolve to the C, and finally I'll reach at the bottom. At this point I can choose to reverse the process and kind of work my way back up the neck by doing the 1 to the 4. And so on and so on. Once I'm happy with this, I can try different keys or different chord progressions, eventually hopefully doing both. For now I'm going to stay in the key of C and try another chord progression, and rather than doing 2 major chords, I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit so I can get used to some of those other drop-free shapes. So now I'm going to be doing 4 minor to 1. That sounds like this. I can even start to add more chords into my progression to make it more interesting. So I'm going to be doing 4 minor to flat 7 major to 1. There are an unlimited number of chord progressions that you can create and choose from when making this exercise, and of course we have all 12 keys that we have to work through. So this leaves us with tons of musical material that we can practice to get used to these chord shapes. So there we have it, drop 3 voicings for the A string guitar, and a fun little musical way you can practice them. Tomorrow I will be hosting our 4th ever get-together online, in which any of you can come and hang out, and we talk about A string stuff, talk about theory, talk about songs, and whatever you might want help with. If you can't make this one or missed your chance to sign up, don't worry, there will be another sign up coming soon for November. You just have to keep an eye on my Buy Me a Coffee page to see when that will come out. Speaking of coffee, you can keep me caffeinated by donating down at the link in the description below, and it helps keep this channel running and allows me to hopefully one day make this a full-time job. I really appreciate everyone who's been donating lately. There's been such a kind support for the channel, and it is allowing me to purchase very soon some upgrades for my little studio here where I make my videos that I'm very excited to show you all in the near future. So with that, I hope wherever you are in the world you have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy practicing.